Welcome everybody, also to the last people that joined us. I can see there are many people today from really all over the world, so it's gonna be interesting. Again, I'm speaking from Bologna, Italy, the headquarters of Icecream 1927. I am in our Gelatineo, our school, and today we're gonna speak about the iconic Effe6 and the Mix7, that is the pasteurizer we will use to produce our gelato today. Now, as you probably know, if you are not completely new to the gelato business, whenever we need to make some gelato, we have basically two processes that we need to make in order to prepare our gelato. The first one is pasteurization, and the second one is batch freezing. Both of them are obviously very important to reach the perfect final result. We will speak about them in detail while the machine are working, but obviously we cannot think to make a perfect gelato, a perfect Italian artisanal gelato, skipping one of these two processes or making them, let's say, without taking care of a few important parts of the process. I always say, if you have ever made a course with me, you know that I always say that to make a very good gelato, the key elements are basically four. One is for sure the recipe, but it's not the most important one, and it's not the only one. So we need to have a good recipe for sure. We need to have good ingredients and make researches on finding new ingredients constantly, never stopping. Then we need a good process. I mean that if, especially with some recipes, the order in which we make the processes, the way in which we make the processes, for example, the temperature at which we cook our gelato mix matters, and it changes the final result. So the process affects, for sure, the final product. And the fourth element, so recipe, ingredient, the process, and the technology. So the machines that I'm using. Gelato is particular because it's one of the very few elements in the food business in which we cannot make it without a specific machine designed to do it. So try to think about, for example, a pizza or an hamburger or something like that. We can cook it also just on the fire. Or if we want to make a tiramisu, a dessert, we just need a bowl, and potentially we can even just whip it with a whisk by hand or with a spoon. Well, gelato needs a gelato machine. So that's quite clear if we think about the importance of that gelato machine and the importance of the technology that we apply to the gelato machine. Okay, said this, today we're gonna see a very particular situation, because actually technology behind the gelato machines that we're using today is very, very basic. Is, we can say, not even a real technology. It's a mechanical system born in 1927. That is the date in which Otello Cattabriga, our founder, invented the first gelato machine, the first automatic gelato machine ever invented in the history. And so you can understand immediately that the technology behind this machine is a very basic technology. But thanks to its particular approach to the gelato making process, the final product is going to be unique. I don't know if it is the first time that you see an Effe6 in action, and unfortunately you won't be able to taste the gelato we will make today. But what I can assure you is the fact that the gelato coming out from an Effe6 is a unique gelato. It's impossible to find something like that, because the process, again, we go back to the four main things to care of when we make a gelato. The process that we make when we make a gelato in the Effe6 is for sure something different, something unique. Okay, after this, let's say, overview and introduction on today's topic, we will start from pasteurization. And so speaking about our Mix7. Mix7 is the small pasteurizer you see here. I move the camera a little bit. It's not important to see my face, it's more important to see the machine here. So Mix7 is a small pasteurizer. We can say is the smallest pasteurizer that we have in our company and in our range of machines. Mix7, 7 as always, when we speak about numbers written next to the name of our machines, means the maximum amount of mix that we can pour in one cycle. So today we're going to use the Mix7 and the Effe6. So in both cases, Mix7 means that I can put maximum 7 liters of mix inside my Mix7, and Effe6 means that I can pour maximum 6 kilos of mix inside my Effe6. So we speak about liters when we have a pasteurizer, we speak about kilos when we have a gelato machine, always. Now, Mix7. Mix7 is a very simple machine. I will move to the other camera so you can see inside the cylinder. Here we are. So moving around, we can see the cylinder inside. So we have a plastic lid here that we can remove easily. And then inside is very, very simple machine. There is the cylinder, heated up, obviously. Then we have the hole in which the mixer will go out after the pasteurization process. And this is the mixer. This mixer can be removed very easily. It is quite simple as well, but actually very, very powerful, thanks to this system with small holes that they help to emulsify the mix. And thanks to the fact that the speed that this machine is able to reach is quite high, it's a very, very simple system. So we put back our beater, the agitator, and we are actually already able to pasteurize our mix. Here, the last piece you see inside the cylinder is the shower. So we will see it at the end of pasteurization when I show you how to clean the machine. From here, we can pour some water directly into the pasteurizer in order to make the cleaning process easier and faster. And that's it. Inside the cylinder, there is nothing else. In front, the machine is like that. We have for sure, obviously, the spigot that is open very easily, just screwing in or out this plastic part. If we want to remove it, there is a system like the system we use for umbrellas. So we just push this in and take out the spigot. So the piston of the spigot. Also in this case, a very, very simple piece in order to clean it and to remove it. We put it back, we screw it in, and the machine is ready to work, as I said. So here in front, the other components that we see are the screen in which we have just the temperature of the mix. In this case, it is 22, so it is room temperature. The cylinder is empty. We can set it. So depending on which temperature we want to reach during the pasteurization, we can change the setting from here, pressing arrow down. We have the program. And then going up or down, we can set the temperature that we want to reach. So now I will set it to 85 because we're going to pasteurize our fior di latte, and it's done. So we have the temperature inside and the set. On the other side, we have just the two systems to let the machine work. The white button is the shower. You see the symbol is always the same when we speak about showers in our gelato machines. So if I press here, I'll show you later, but some water comes out from there, okay? And then here we have the switcher in order to decide the function that we need. As you can see, if I put the switcher on the left or on the right, the machine stays in stop. If I move down, the beater moves. It was obviously noisy now because the machine is empty, and it's always better to avoid switching on a machine when it's empty. But anyway, that's the function. On the other side, we have the flame, and I'm sure you already understood. The flame is for pasteurization. So again, also in this case, the beater moves, but it moves also, it is switched on also the heating system. So very, very simple machine. I will move now again to the front camera so you can see my face again. Here we are. Sorry, but I need to move from one side to the other. So the machine is very simple. The components are basically two: the central beater and the spigot, the piston of the spigot. The functions are again basically two. We have the pasteurization and the beating. So very, very simple machine. We will start pasteurizing our gelato mix now. So I already have here my fior di latte. Today we're gonna make a particular stracciatella. I'll show you what I mean. Anyway, this is our gelato mix. So I prepared it in advance. In this case, I mixed everything together. So here I have milk, sugar, cream, skim milk powder, the stabilizers. Everything that I need is mixed together thanks to a powerful mixer, our turbo mix. If you don't want to mix everything together, you can also always use the process that we use usually for pasteurizers. I pour the mix and then I explain you what I mean. So we just check that the speaker is closed. We pour our gelato mix from the top. Very, very simple. We close the lid and we activate the machine. So I put the switcher on the flame. And the machine now is moving. It's not noisy anymore, as you can hear, because obviously there is something inside. And now the machine is doing two processes at the same time. It is heating up the mix thanks to a gas system, and it is mixing the mix. These are the two main processes of pasteurization. So as I was saying, the first option that you have is to mix all the ingredients that you need to use inside your recipe, blend them properly with a powerful blender, and then pour everything inside directly. The second option that you have is the same process that we usually use when we have a big pasteurizers. So I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We always start from the liquids. So we pour milk, cream, egg yolk if you're using it, whatever is liquid. We activate the machine and we start pasteurizing. Once that the mix reaches between 30 and 40 degrees, we can pour the powders that previously we had scaled and mixed all together. It's very important to mix the powders all together because we want to avoid lumps. And especially when we have stabilizers and skim milk powder and cocoa as well, it's very easy to have lumps. So if we mix all the powders together and we use the sugar mainly, so the sucrose, to mix them around and spread them perfectly, for sure we won't have any lump inside our final product. So now the machine is heating up my gelato base, and the process is going to be very easy. We are heating up. When we reach the set point, so in this case it's 85 degrees, the machine will automatically start to cool down the mix. There won't be any operation to do on the machine. Everything is automatic. So whenever we reach 85 degrees, in this case, the set point, the machine starts cooling. The cooling process of this machine is done with water. So it is a water-cooled machine. But in this case, if usually when we say that a machine is water-cooled, for example, Effe6, it's water-cooled, but it means that the water is used to cool down the gas that we use in order to freeze our gelato mix. In the case of Mix7, the machine is really water-cooled. It means that the mix is cooled down by the water itself. So there is water circuits around the cylinder that uses the water coming, the tap water, the water coming from the water system of your building or whatever it is. And thanks to the cold temperature of that water, that usually is around 15, 20 degrees, we cool down the mix. So it's a kind of a bain-marie cooling. That's the way the Mix7 works. Why I'm saying this? Because obviously the timing that this machine needs in order to complete the process it's between 20 and 30 minutes. Because especially the heating process is very fast. The cooling process, it's very fast as well, actually, because 10 minutes to cool down a mix is for sure not so much. But anyway, it is a bit more slow compared to, for example, a big pasteurizer in which we have a more sophisticated system. I told you from the beginning, in this case, we are using a very simple technology in both situations. Once that the mix is cold, so it reaches 4 degrees, that is the fridge temperature, we have basically two options. The first option is to leave the mix there. The machine will work as a fridge, so it will keep 4 degrees forever, and we can leave the mix there for 1 day, 2 days. The maximum usually is 3 days. That's the shelf life of a pasteurized gelato base. So we can leave it there, or better, and we suggest actually to do the second process, we take it out and we put it in a fridge. So in this way, we can clean the machine or use it for the next flavor, because usually, I mean, you won't need to pasteurize just one flavor, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, I don't know. So we need the space and the empty cylinder inside the Mix7. So we take out the mix, we put it in the fridge to rest, and at the same time, we can start using the Mix7 for the next process. So here we saw another important process, and then we move to the Effe6. The other important process is the aging. Aging is the period that goes from the end of pasteurization to the beginning of batch freeze. It means that when my gelato mix is ready, is usually strongly suggested to let it rest overnight in the fridge. The minimum time for the aging process is about 4 hours, even 6 is okay. Usually people prepare the mix the day before. So let's say that in the afternoon you prepare your mix, you leave it resting overnight in the fridge, and in the morning, when you arrive to the laboratory again, the mix is ready to be used. So aging, it's obviously a very important phase of the gelato process. You can think about aging as the resting that you need to give, for example, to the bread dough or the pizza dough. If you make your pizza, you cannot just mix all the ingredients and cook it. It will never be a good pizza. It would be quite a piece of rock. So if you are making a pizza, you know that you need to rest your dough. With gelato, it's exactly the same. So we will rest our mix overnight. Now, I just wanted to show you that on the screen of the Mix7, the temperature is increasing quite quickly. So again, I move to the second camera, and here we are with the temperature that is 53. So it's going very fast up to 85. We started from 20, if you remember, a few minutes ago, and the mix is moving. So the pasteurization is taking place. As you can see, the beater goes pretty fast, and this allows us to have a very fast process, up 1 degree every few seconds. Okay, so we move to our Effe6. Obviously, because of the webinar timing, we have 1 hour. We cannot wait for the pasteurizer to finish its process. So I will switch it off now. And as I said, we should also actually, after making the pasteurization, leave the mix resting overnight, so there won't be for sure the time to do that. So I prepared some mix yesterday, and we have it ready here in our second container. This mix now it's cold. It is coming from the fridge, and it rested 12 hours. So we are ready to make our gelato in the Effe6. Before starting the gelato production, we have a look to the components of our gelato machine and to what we have inside the cylinder before filling it with some gelato. So the cylinder is very simple. It is just one cylinder, and the only component that is inside the cylinder is this one. I'll show you directly from the front camera so we can say something about it. This is the scraper and the beater also of our Effe6. This is the reason why Effe6 makes a gelato that is completely different from the other gelato that you see around, because this piece is obviously much more delicate compared to, for example, a beater of a modern gelato machine. I don't know which machine you have in your gelato laboratory, but usually the beater of a gelato machine is a quite big piece, quite heavy, quite strong, that gives a huge whipping power, that has a huge whipping power in order to increase the volume of our gelato, whip our gelato, and make our gelato quite fluffy, soft, and smooth. Well, in the Effe6, this is the only piece that will move our gelato mix. It's very light. Usually, during my demonstrations around the world, I give these to the customers to feel that the weight is almost nothing. And we just have a plastic scraper. So this plastic part, the white one, is going to be the one that scrapes the gelato from the frozen wall. Now, you will see directly inside the cylinder, but the way this machine works is very simple. We pour the gelato mix inside, the cylinder is moving. So obviously, when you're moving something, it's like some water inside a glass and you start moving with a spoon, the water goes on the walls. This will happen also here in our Effe6. The gelato will go on the walls. The walls are going to be very cold, around minus 23 degrees. And so they will freeze the gelato that stays on the wall. And after a few seconds, the scraper will scrape the gelato that is frozen from the wall, and the gelato that is still liquid will have the space to go on the wall again. This now sounds maybe a bit confusing, but now we will see what happens directly inside the cylinder, and you will see that it's quite simple and quite clear. So let's move inside our gelato machine with the other camera, so we can start pouring our gelato, and we can start talking about how the machine works. Here we are. So I put my scraper back into the machine like this. Perfect. As you can see, the machine, the wall is frozen. Why it's frozen? Because I had to prepare my machine. It means that the first difference between Effe6 and the modern gelato machines is that you cannot just arrive in the morning, pour some gelato, and start making gelato. You need to pre-chill the cylinder. So prepare the cylinder to receive some gelato mix. The cylinder will be at room temperature when you arrive in the morning. So the first thing that we're going to do is to cool it down. In this moment, the cylinder is at minus 20 degrees. So it's very cold. And whenever we pour some gelato mix, it will start freezing immediately. I'll show you how to cool down the mix. But before doing that, we start making our gelato. So we have the time to make it perfectly batch frozen before the end of the webinar. So I have my gelato mix here ready. I can switch on the machine. The machine starts moving, and we start pouring our gelato mix. Okay. So, as you can see, it is happening exactly what I was saying a few minutes ago. The mix is liquid, so in the center of our gelato mix, nothing. There is no gelato in the center, as you can see, and the whole gelato stays on the wall. So we have already, you see here, there is already some gelato that is frozen. So it is exactly happening what I was telling you a few minutes ago. I will try to. Okay. So this is the way the machine works. The gelato goes on the wall and the scraper scrapes it from the wall. The particular thing is that now if you start counting the seconds, the scraper will scrape the wall for 4 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes inside and it goes up for 4 seconds. 3, 4, and then it goes down. So what happens? Why I'm telling you this? Because this is the most interesting part of this process. The fact is that every centimeter of our gelato, of our cylinder wall, is going to be scraped every 8 seconds. So the gelato will stay on the wall, getting frozen for 8 seconds. That's a long time. If you think about the fact that in a modern gelato machine, the gelato stays on the wall alpha second, because there is a scraper that every alpha second will scrape it from the wall. So it's 16 times more the time that the gelato will spend on the frozen wall. This is what makes the difference in terms of the final texture, together with the fact that, as you can see, the scraper is just scraping, it's not beating. So there is not a beater that whips our gelato during the process. That's another key difference, because this gelato, for sure, it will have a completely different overrun, so a completely different amount of air inside when the process is over. And this will change the texture, will change also the taste in a certain way, because we know that the taste is affected by the amount of air. Air has no taste. So the more air we have, the lower and the weaker will be the taste. So the final product, thanks again to this beater, it is going to be quite different. Okay, while we wait until the gelato gets ready, we move in the front just to have a look to the settings that we have and the buttons that we have. This is the Effe6 from the front. And as you can see, what we have here an emergency button. Whenever we press this emergency button, the machine stops. So usually, as you can see, there is this red part that gives me the chance to press the red button, not pressing it, but even just hitting the red part with my body. So I'm here standing in front of the machine and just pressing on the machine stops. So for safety reasons, I'm always able, with just one very simple move, to stop the machine. The machine now is saying alarm because the emergency button is pressed. To remove the alarm, I just need to remove the emergency button, so take it outside, then go back to stop, okay, and press start. Pressing start, the alarm goes away, and now I'm able to make my gelato again. And the machine is moving. Okay, so this is the first button, the emergency stop. Here, as you just saw, is the start button when we need to restart the machine. And here is the alarm. So it's just a light. It's not a button. We cannot press it. But it is, when it's red, the machine has got a certain problem. On the other side, we have the switcher and another screen. This is exactly the same system that we saw in the Mix7 a few minutes ago. So here on the screen, we just have one information. It is the temperature of the glycol. So if before we were saying that Mix7 is cooled down, the mix into Mix7 is cooled down thanks to the water, in the case of Effe6, this cylinder, it is dipped in a big quantity, it's 15 liters of a cooling liquid, that is water and glycol. So we use that liquid, that in this moment is at -23, to cool down our gelato mix. In this case, it's really like a bain-marie. So the mix is into the cylinder is into this freezing liquid, water and glycol, and in this way, the gelato mix is frozen. As you can see, it is already getting solid. You see the texture is not liquid anymore. It starts to be a bit more compact and elastic, if you see it. So let's go back to the front part. Here, this temperature is something that we can set. So if, as you can see here, there is the set button. In this moment, I set the machine to -23. I could go lower. The minimum is -28, or I can go higher, increasing the temperature. So here I can decide how much cold I want my gelato machine. This will depend on the gelato mix and what we are doing. I will explain you in a few minutes. But before explaining you how to work with the temperature, we have a look quickly to this switcher. Again, we have 4 programs, we can say, 4 options. Option number 1 is stop. So the machine is in stop, nothing is happening. The second option is just mixing. In this moment, the machine is moving, but we are not making gelato, we are just moving. The third option is cooling. You hear for sure the sound. The machine is not moving, but it is cooling down the cylinder, so the compressor is working. The last option is gelato making. And gelato making is the combination between mixing and freezing. So the machine now is doing both. As you can see, it is moving, but if you can hear the sound, it is also cooling down. So these are the programs that we have available. I put back the camera on top of the cylinder so you can see what is happening. And I go back to the front camera so we can discuss a few more topics together. Here we are. So we had a look to all the functions that we have with Effe6. As you saw, there are not many settings and not many options. The only one available actually is the temperature, as I was saying before. Now, how to play with the temperature? The temperature actually, it helps us to be more delicate if we need, we can say. So you can take -23 degrees Celsius, obviously, as the standard setting. So whenever I'm making gelato, I can set -23, and that's usually more than enough to freeze our gelato. We can change it just in specific situations. So, for example, if I'm making a gelato recipe that is quite powerful in terms of anti-freezing power, so if it is a gelato recipe, for example, with alcohol, or if it is a gelato recipe with sugars that have got a high anti-freezing power, so for example, a caramel, in that case, I can decrease, so put a temperature that is lower, for example, -25. -25 is the temperature that I usually use when I have a gelato mix that is hard to freeze, we can say, okay? So something that I need to freeze a bit more, a bit longer and with a higher power. The other option is when I have a gelato mix that is more delicate compared to a standard gelato mix. So for example, a sorbet, when I'm making a sorbet, I usually set the Effe6 to -20 degrees to 0. So it's a warmer temperature compared to the gelato because I don't want to over freeze my gelato mix. I don't want to risk to have ice crystals that are too big. So recap, minus 25 gelato with very high anti-freezing power. Minus 23, it's standard gelato recipe. Minus 20 is a sorbet. Minus 17 is a granita. So if we plan to make a granita, we can keep a temperature that is much higher, minus 17, because granita is very simple. It's water and sugar, so it will freeze very quickly. And also in that case, we don't want to risk to over freeze it. We just need to freeze it in order to make our ice crystals, but we don't want to ruin it. Okay, so this is the only setting that we have available. Everything else, and that's the best part of Effe6, is up to you, and it is regulated by your experience and your capacity to understand what is happening inside a gelato machine. What I mean? I mean that if we compare Effe6 with modern gelato machines, the main difference is that in a modern gelato machine, when I pour the gelato, I set, for example, the program that I need to use, and then I set, for example, the consistency. So if you have one of our machines in your laboratory, for example, a multi-freeze, the machine that I have here next to me, it's the most powerful and high technologically speaking machine that we have in our company. And in that case, when I make my gelato, I just pour the mix and set a certain consistency that I want to reach, a certain hardness of my gelato. Whenever the mixer reaches that hardness, the machine automatically understands that the gelato is ready and says, gelato ready. It sounds, it makes a signal, and I'm ready to extract. Well, with Effe6, there is nothing like that. There are no signals, there are no parameters to set. There is nothing that can stop the machine automatically or tell me that the gelato is ready automatically. Everything has to be done looking at the gelato, checking how it is, checking how frozen it is, how compact it is, how dry it is, and at a certain point decide that for me, in my gelateria, with my concept, with my chef knowledge, that gelato is ready. It doesn't mean that it is universally ready. Maybe if another person starts making that gelato with the same recipe also, maybe it will take it out in a different moment. That's the best part of Effe6, because it gives you the opportunity to use your know-how, use your experience, and make the gelato exactly as you like, not just following the parameters of a modern machine that obviously are super useful and super interesting, but in some cases they are forcing us to do something that maybe we don't want, and just leave the gelato there until I understand that it is ready. So this is the first best part, in my opinion, of using an Effe6. The fact that you need experience, you need a know-how, and you can use it. The second good point of using an Effe6 is for sure the fact that from the marketing point of view, the marketing of our gelato shop, gelato store, and gelato concept, it's a big plus. If we put an Effe6 in front of our customers directly inside the gelateria, it's going to be showtime 24/7, because you are going to make gelato live in front of the people. Everyone will be able to see what you're doing, see that you are doing a gelato handmade, artisanally made 100%, and this will give a big selling point, let's say, to your gelato. It's something that makes your gelateria different from the competition, the competitors, and that makes your gelato unique. So from the marketing point of view, this machine is fantastic. Here in Bologna, where I live and where I was born, 90% of the gelateria in town, they have at least one Effe6 in front of the customers, just to show to the people that they are making artisanal gelato. Here, the quality of gelato is quite high, but if you don't have an Effe6, the customers will feel something strange, you know? They won't be sure that you are really making artisanal gelato. Maybe you are just using a modern gelato machine and you don't want to, and you don't have the possibility to show it your customers. But anyway, they are so used to the fact that Effe6 is the gelato machine for artisanal gelato that they feel something strange if they don't see it in the shop. Now, obviously, Bologna, it's a particular situation. It's the place where Cattabriga and the Effe6 was invented, so everyone knows it. But anyway, around the world, I'm sure you noticed it. When there is a machine like this around, it's always something premium and something high catching for the customers. Now, the gelato is almost ready, and we will have a look inside the cylinder now. And we will also have the chance to appreciate the third reason why Effe6 is for sure different from the others and unique. And it is the fact that we can add whatever we want inside the gelato during the process. What I mean? I mean that, as I told you, today we're going to make a particular stracciatella. So we need to add inside our gelato two variegato. Stracciatella, because it starts from the classical stracciatella concept, and we will also add a caramel crumble. So I have a crumble here. It's a homemade crumble with some caramel to give some extra color and some extra flavor. We will add these into our gelato as well. So stracciatella, so let's say chocolate, melted chocolate, okay, nothing strange, and a caramel crumble. Now, if we were using a normal gelato machine, a modern gelato machine, for example, our multi-freeze here next to me, we should add these elements to our final product at the end of the batch freezing process, when we are taking up the gelato. So we take out our gelato from the machine here in front. I don't know if you ever tried to make some gelato with a, let's say, modern machine or normal machine. Then once the gelato is out and it is inside our tray container, we can add the sauce or whatever we need directly on top of the gelato. But the problem of that system is that for sure it's something that we can do, and it works. 95% of the gelaterias around the world, they do something like that. But for sure, if we have the opportunity to put that sauce, that variegato, that element directly inside the batch freezing cylinder during the process, the consequence will be that the variegato is going to be spread around perfectly. So every centimeter of gelato, every 50 grams of gelato, they will have the same amount of variegato inside. If I am pouring the stracciatella on top of my container, just from the top, for sure there will be some part of my gelato that they have a lot of chocolate inside, some other they won't. In this case, we pour everything directly inside the cylinder. We let the machine move for a few minutes more, so everything is going to be perfectly homogenized, let's say, in terms of variegato, and fantastic. So we move from this camera to the other camera, so we can see inside. We can see why I said that the gelato is almost ready, and we can add our variegato. Let's move. The gelato, as you can see, it looks different from what it was before. It is, first of all, much more dry. It is not liquid anymore. And why I can say that it's not liquid anymore? Because if you check inside, I will give the chance to go a bit more inside the gelato machine. Okay, so if you check inside, the gelato is not going on the walls anymore. Okay, it's staying in the center of the machine because it is not liquid anymore. So it has not the power during the mixing phase to go on the wall. So a lot of gelato in the center and a lot of gelato that stays also on the scraper. You see the scraper is full of gelato, and that gelato is stable, is dry, is compact, stays there. And that's the reason why we can say that the gelato is, in this case, ready. So having the gelato ready, we can now do basically two things. The first thing is to switch off the compressor from the control panel. So here, in front of the machine, I move from the batch freezing process, here, the cone, to just the mixing process. Why? Because the temperature is already -24. So it is still very cold, and I don't need to freeze my gelato anymore. So I don't need to waste energy and to over freeze my gelato. So stopping the freezing process, I can keep moving without ruining my gelato. The machine keeps moving. As I said, the cylinder, it is dipped in a liquid that is very cold in this moment. It's 24 degrees. So we don't risk to melt our gelato at all. We are just using the cold that we already have on the cylinder to maintain our product. Now we get our chocolate, melted chocolate. This is nothing strange. It's just dark chocolate melted in the microwave with a bit of cocoa butter added to make it a bit more liquid and to help it in crystallizing very quickly when it touches the gelato. So it is dark chocolate and 10% of cocoa butter. That's the recipe of this stracciatella. And we are ready to pour it inside our gelato machine. When should we pour it? Not now, for example. Why not now? Because the scraper is now moving and mixing the gelato. We need to wait until the scraper comes out of the gelato, be ready to pour the chocolate, and then stop the machine for a few seconds. So I place my hand on the control panel, okay? I stop, I wait until the beater comes up. When it starts coming up, I start pouring the chocolate. And before the beater touches the gelato again, I stop. You see, I was pouring chocolate until the beater was staying outside of the gelato. Now that the beater is inside, is going inside, I stopped everything in order to do not mix the chocolate when the chocolate is not crystallized yet, okay? So the chocolate is liquid. If we just mix everything, the risk is to have not chocolate pieces, but chocolate dots, small dots of chocolate all around our stracciatella. We don't want that. The stracciatella must be crunchy. So we need to have big chocolate pieces. So now we are waiting until the chocolate gets crystallized. Here, I don't know if you can see from the camera, but actually it is already quite hard, the chocolate. Thanks to the addition of cocoa butter, it is crystallizing very, very quickly. The color you see is not shiny, it's quite matte. So now, in a few seconds from now, we will activate the machine again. As we said before, we won't use the freezing process. We are just mixing. We don't need to freeze, we just need to mix. Now I will stay silent for a few seconds so you can hear the classical sound of stracciatella being broken by the Effe6. Okay, I'm sure you heard it. I hope you heard it. And that was the sound of the big pieces of chocolate being broken by the scraper of stracciatella. As you can see now, stracciatella is spread around. We have many pieces all around our gelato. Now we will put some more. So we will add some extra chocolate. What I usually suggest is to do not put the stracciatella just like by hand, looking at it, but it's always better to scale your stracciatella to have always the same quantity and also to control the costs. So usually I put 70, 80 grams of stracciatella in 1 kilo of gelato, fior di latte gelato. That's usually my recipe. So now that everything is perfectly spread around, we can go with the second shot of stracciatella with the same system. So we wait until the beater comes up and we start pouring our chocolate inside. We stop before the scraper goes inside again. As always, first rule of a good chef is to work clean. So we always clean our gelato machine also while we are working. We wait a few seconds again. In the meanwhile, I get prepared also with the crumble, the caramel crumble that I showed you before. Here we have our crumble. And in a few seconds now, we will add it to our gelato. So we start the machine again. Same sound. Here now, when we add something crunchy, so something that is not liquid and doesn't need to be crystallized, we can add it directly into the gelato. Okay, this is the reason why I wanted to combine two different variegati to show you the different techniques. So when we have something liquid like stracciatella that needs to be crystallized, we need to stop the machine for a few seconds after pouring it. In this case, it's a crumble, so it's already, it has its own structure, and we can simply pour it inside the machine while the machine is moving. And in this way, it will be mixed all around very quickly and simply. Fantastic. Our stracciatella is almost ready. And we are ready to take it out. We also are perfectly on time. We have a few minutes more, and then we start with the Q&A. I already have some questions written in the chat, so we will answer to them. Okay, now how to extract the gelato from here. I move for 1 second to the front camera to show you a few things, and then we move here again to see the extraction process directly from the cylinder. Okay, so the gelato is ready. We are just waiting a few more seconds. Usually, in terms of temperature, is better to take out the gelato when the cylinder reaches around 19 degrees. So we keep moving until the cylinder warms up again. Sorry, a bit. Why? Because in this way, there is not gelato on the wall, okay? You will see that at the end of the extraction process, the gelato leftovers are going to be very small quantity. And this is possible, especially if we don't have a cylinder that is too cold. When we speak about extraction, we are speaking about using the paddle. This is La Pala, the gelato paddle. And this is one of the reasons why using an Effe6 is not for everyone, for sure, because you need to get familiar with this system. Usually, when we use a modern gelato machine, we just open the front door here, very easy, and the gelato comes out, thanks to the gravity. In this case, there is no gravity that works because the cylinder is closed, so we need to take it up the gelato from the top, and we will use our paddle in order to take it out. You don't have to be strong and 2 meters tall as I am to use the paddle. You can just you just need the right technique. I have many friends, many customers using an Effe6, and even many girls using an Effe6 without being super strong. Is all about knowing where to put the paddle, in which moment, and how to move the paddle inside the cylinder in the proper way. I'll show you now so we can see directly from inside what is happening and how it works. And that's quite simple. The only thing that we need to get is the container. So I will take my from my remember, there is always very important to have a frozen container. So this is now very cold. It's coming out from -20 degrees. In this way, I have the time to take out my gelato without melting it, and I will place it next to my machine. If you are working in your laboratory, we usually suggest to get a small table in which we can put our pozzetto and work easily with it. In this case, I have the table with the Mix7 on top, but I will move the Mix7, and now I have my pozzetto, my cuvette here, perfectly close to my gelato machine in order to take out the gelato from here and put it directly here. The last tool that I need is a spatula. I usually prefer the hard spatula, but you can use also a soft one. Now we are ready to take out our gelato. So we move to the other camera in order to see what is going on inside. Now, we have, first of all, to make a process that is super important, and it is to cool down the paddle. Why cool down the paddle? Because if now I just go inside the cylinder and take out the gelato doesn't stay on the paddle. Why? Because the paddle is too hot. So the gelato goes down. So the first thing to do is to leave the paddle a few seconds inside the cylinder. Once that you see that the gelato stays on the paddle, we are ready to take out our gelato. As you can see, the position in which we need to stay is on the right side of the machine, here between the central pole and the wall on the right. We stay here and we just work together with the beater of the gelato machine. The gelato now stays on the paddle and I can take it out and place it inside my pozzetto. I go back. Yeah. So the gelato stays on the paddle. It's perfectly frozen, as you can see, and I can take it out from my cylinder. Now, when there is a lot of gelato inside, it's quite easy, the process. As you can see, I put the paddle inside and the gelato goes on it by itself. So I just need to place the paddle in the right position and then the gelato comes easily. The difficult part, let's say, or at least the part in which you need a bit more experience, is the last part, when the gelato is not so much anymore. So I need to move inside the cylinder to stay in the proper position. Now, for example, as you can see, there is a very small quantity of gelato left. There is some gelato on the paddle, but on the scraper, but we don't need to care about it because we will be able to remove the scraper at the end. So we just need to clean the wall. We clean the wall, we stay on the right side, we go at the bottom, then we come up from the center. As you can see, I'm cleaning the central part till the end of the central pole. And now that there is no more gelato on the cylinder, when the scraper reaches the top, I can stop the machine using the switcher. I can remove the scraper here, this one. So I can clean the scraper from the gelato that is left. Here we are. In this way, we don't waste 1 gram of gelato because obviously waste is a cost. So we need to clean perfectly also the scraper. Once the scraper is clean, we will just complete the extraction with a few seconds more, just to take out what is left inside the cylinder. We don't need to place the scraper anymore inside. This scraper can go directly in the sink to clean it. And now we just move back inside the gelato machine to clean the last grams of gelato left. Again, I go at the bottom, then I start cleaning the center as well. And as you can see, there were like 50 grams of gelato left inside. Done. So if we check inside, the cylinder is completely clean. There is no waste when we are speaking about Effe6. The waste is there just if we don't use the proper technique to extract our gelato. If we do everything properly, I'll show you also from closer, there is no gelato inside. Okay, we move to the other camera to say a few more things. Here we are. So the extraction is over. Our gelato now here is ready to be eaten. And unfortunately, it's a webinar. It's not a demonstration in person, so you won't be able to taste it. But that was the process to take it out. I hope it was clear. I hope with the two-camera system, you were able to see what was going on. And as you understood, the process doesn't take too long, but it needs a bit of know-how in order to do everything properly and be efficient when we take it out. This gelato now has to be shock frozen for a few minutes, 5-6 minutes, and then can be stocked in the pozzetti in order to sell it, or stocked in a freezer in order to keep it there for the next hours or the next days. Okay, I think this is mainly it. I said everything that I wanted to say. I just complete the explanation with one more thing, saying that it's obviously important to organize the production properly, because the cleaning phase of the machine cannot be done in an easy way as in a modern gelato machine. So if we need, for example, to make a second flavor now that is matching the color with the stracciatella we just did, is perfect. As you saw, the machine is very clean, so we can pour the mix directly. If we are in the situation in which we made some chocolate, for example, and we need to make some vanilla, then it is necessary to clean the machine, and there are basically two options. The first one is to clean the cylinder with a plastic scraper. I'll show you. I have one here. I'll show you what I mean. Something like this. The pastry plastic scraper. I can use this scraper to scrape the wall with the hand and take out the small amount of gelato left. If I want to clean deeply my cylinder, there is also the possibility to disassemble the machine. There is not a lot of time left, so I won't go in detail in this explanation, but just to give you the idea, to disassemble the machine, we are able to slide the motor of the machine on one side, so place it like here. At that point, we are able to work on the cylinder, remove the cylinder from the center, clean it in the sink or in the dishwasher, and then place it back and put the machine back in order ready to work. So it is also possible to make, as I said, a deep cleaning of the machine. It takes a bit more time compared to a modern gelato machine, but actually there are not so many pieces. We are talking about 5 pieces to disassemble, clean the cylinder, and put everything back. So it's an operation that doesn't require too much effort, we can say. It just requires a bit of time. Okay. There are still many people online that keep listening to us, so it means that I hope it was interesting, and we have the time for some Q&A. So I open the chat and I start reading what you wrote. Now I start from the first question, that is how to adjust the speed of the cylinder in Effe6 or Effe4. The speed of the cylinder cannot be adjusted. The speed is just one. It is always the same, and there are no regulations to adjust the speed. This possibility, I'm sure you thought about it, because maybe you're using an horizontal modern batch freezer like the multi-freeze. In that case, it's possible to adjust the speed of the beater, but in this case, it's not possible. The speed is just one. As we said, it's a very simple machine, very basic technology. Second question, and I invite you to write everything that you need now, so I can read all of them. Second question, how often can we change the glycol? Another interesting question. The glycol, that is the liquid in which the machine is dipped, as I said, can be changed. First of all, opening here the drainage channel at the bottom. I open these and the glycol comes out. Then I can substitute it from the top. So pouring some more glycol into the machine. The substitution has to be made depending on the usage of the machine and the climate of the place where you are. The more humidity you have, the more often, so in the room and in your country, in a place where you are working, the more often the glycol needs to be changed. Why? Because the glycol inside is actually, as I said, a mix of 50% glycol and 50% water. And if the environment where you are, it's very humid, the risk is to have more and more water inside. So the efficiency of the machine is not perfect anymore. Again, also, as I said, if you work a lot, the glycol gets dirty and so less efficient as well. So depending on basically these two parameters, we can change the glycol every once in a while. Let's say, to give you some starting point, I was usually changing it every 6 months when I was working in a gelateria using Effe6. So every 6 months usually is enough. You can also just refill it. So actually what I was doing was change the glycol every year, so once per year, but refilling it every 4 or 5 months. So every 4 or 5 months I was checking the level. There is a signal inside the cylinder to check the level of the glycol. If something is missing, you can refill, adding some more, always 50-50 glycol and water. So refill every 3-5 months, complete change once per year. But then, as I said, depending on how you work it and where you work. Thanks for the question. So, third question from an Effe6 hair-cooled user. Hello, I am an F user. I would like to know the spring not as tight as before. Which parts I need to replace? The spring is not as tight as before. Which part I need to replace? I don't know which spring you're talking about. If maybe you can write down something a bit more in detail. If anyway you need some more support, you can also write to us an email sending the picture of the piece that has got something wrong. I'll give you the email at the end of the webinar. Sorry for not answering in detail. Another question: how to clean and maintain the Effe6? I hope I understand. I answered to this question during the webinar. As you understood, the maintenance is just changing the glycol and changing the scraper, the plastic scraper that you saw at the beginning of the webinar. That scraper needs to be changed usually once per year as well, depending on how much you use it. So glycol and scraper is the basic maintenance, and the cleaning, as we said, the standard cleaning is made using a plastic scraper and scraping the wall. The deep cleaning is made by disassembling the machine, removing the cylinder, and cleaning the cylinder in the dishwasher. This is the deep cleaning operation. Another question from Mustafa Lakdawala. Thanks for the question. Would this Effe6 be ideal machine to make gelato for ice cream cakes? Would it give the right consistency? Very good question. So Mr. Lakdawala is asking if the gelato coming out of an Effe is good for making gelato cakes. Yes, for sure. I'm sure you noticed that the consistency of the gelato was quite elastic and very creamy. So that elasticity and that creaminess is perfect to fill a silicone mold, for example, of a cake, and have a very easy operation when we need to create the cake. So definitely yes gelato from Effe6 is perfect. Many customers, they are also filling the molds directly from the machine. So they stop the machine and they start getting the gelato out of the machine, filling the mold directly from the machine itself. I don't know if you saw on our Instagram page, the Icecream page, we posted a video yesterday talking about the Effe6, and there was my colleague Giacomo filling some molds of popsicles directly from the machine. That's an option for sure. We have 3 more questions. So another question is, how could this machine be used for bulk production of gelato? So I guess you mean which is the productivity of the Effe6? Now, good question. The Effe6 needs between 10 and 16 minutes to complete one full cycle. So if we put 6 kilos of gelato inside our Effe6, we will need between 10 and, as I said, 16, 18 maximum minutes in order to make our final gelato ready. This means that we have a productivity about 30 kilos per hour if we work full charge, as I said. So it is not for sure a machine that is able to make tons of gelato per hour. But that's not the concept of the machine. The machine, as I said, is designed to have a slow process that gives a unique texture. So as I said, there are many gelaterias in Bologna, for example, making a gelato with Effe and making tons of gelato every week, but they have more than one machine. So another example that I can give you, again, talking about my colleague Giacomo, his gelateria here in Bologna, Sorbetteria Castiglione, they have 4 Effe6 in order to make a continuous production and making hundreds of kilos per day. For sure, if you compare an Effe6 with a modern batch freezer, a multi-freeze 18, for example, that makes 18 kilos in 12 minutes, the productivity is obviously much lower, but for sure the gelato is going to be different, as I hope you understood from my explanation this morning. Great. The other questions we have, so another guy asked for the cleaning process again, so I think I explained how it works. And then I have one more question from the Effe6 user with the spring. We will keep in touch. I will take your WhatsApp and we will keep in touch in the next hours. Okay, so no more questions written here. I think we said everything we had to say. I hope it was an interesting webinar and a useful one. If you need any information, you can, first of all, check all our social media, in which you will find many videos about Effe6, especially on YouTube. If you need anything more, or if you need an appointment with one of our distributors, local distributors or area managers, you can write an email to info@gelateneo.it. That's the email of our school. I say it again, it's info@gelateneo.it. You can write us an email telling us where are you writing from and which is your interest, why you are writing us, and we will put in contact with our local distributors all around the world. Thanks again for your time. It was 1 hour and 10 minutes, very interesting for me. I really enjoyed staying with you online for a few time, and see you around, and see you in the next webinars we will do during this month. We will make a few webinars on the soft machines, a few webinars on the modern gelato machines, so compacta, vario, and we can keep in touch in many different ways. Thanks again to our guests from all over the world, and see you soon. Bye-bye.